What's up, guys? Today I'm really excited to share the reveal of our back patio makeover and walk you through a step-by-step process of how I DIY'd and stenciled the patio concrete to look like cement tiles. As you can imagine, this was a very time-consuming project, but ultimately it was beyond worth it, and I'm so happy with the results. We saved thousands of dollars by going the stencil painting route instead of installing expensive cement tiles, which I've also heard are very difficult to maintain and care for, and here's how we did it. A little background on this space. When we first bought this house, we knew this back patio would be one of our biggest priorities in terms of projects we wanted to tackle. Living in Southern California, your outdoor space is usable all year round, and having the ability to take advantage of that indoor-outdoor living dynamic was a huge must for us. The patio was covered in this old, very ugly pink concrete, but it was definitely not unusable. So we just put down an outdoor rug and used it as is for the first 2 years while we saved the budget we would need to give it a makeover. We learned from a contractor, however, that we wouldn't be able to just cover the existing ugly concrete with tiles because it was old and cracked, and that would apparently just lead to the tiles cracking too. Another huge problem with the existing concrete was the slope of it and the way it caused water to pool up against the outside of the house whenever it rained. There were no drains for rain back here, so that meant water would just sit up against the house fairly often, and it could really damage the foundation over time. Once we learned that, we realized we had to make this project happen ASAP. We had the old concrete totally jackhammered up and removed. The contractors added 2 drains to help with the water issue and relayed the concrete so it would slope ever so slightly toward the drains. We also replaced the rotting wood fence above the stucco wall that was covered in this super ugly fake plastic foliage that was constantly falling off with a brand new redwood fence, which made a massive difference. With a fresh, brand new surface of concrete, it was time to paint. So here are the supplies you'll need to take on a similar project. A stiff bristle push broom to scrub the concrete, a spray hose or a pressure washer, and concrete cleaner if you want. A paint roller with an extender pole, which will make painting your base coat far easier on your back, and some rough surface paint roller covers. A paint pan and some liners, some mini paint trays for your different stencil colors, your base coat color and your stencil color paint, your stencil, which I recommend getting at least 4 of them so you can work in batches, some stencil brushes, I put a link in the description to the ones that I found worked best for me, some painter's tape to tape down your stencil, and then lastly, this isn't necessary, but a rolling patio umbrella really saved me from getting major sunburn during this project. Here are the steps. Step 1 is to choose your stencil pattern and your paint colors. I ended up going with this geometric design from an Etsy seller called Dizzy Duck Stencils, whose shop offers a ton of cool designs in a bunch of different sizes, which I'll link them in the description. Another great thing about this shop is that they offer these sheets of faux tiles with more than 1 tile on them, so I ended up ordering 4 sheets so I could get more done at once. The type of paint that I used was bare porch and patio paint, which I got at Home Depot, and after testing out a few samples to see which ivory color matched my stucco the best, I went with a color called Roman Plaster for the base coat, and then I went with a yellow color called Blonde Wood, and a terracotta color called Kalahari Sunset for the tiles. I just had the guy at Home Depot mix those colors into the porch and patio floor paint, which is great. You can have it mixed into basically any color that they offer. Step 2 is to test out your stencil pattern and your colors so you can get a feel for how they're gonna look on the concrete. You don't have to do this, but I just like to plan in advance to make sure that I like it before I put it on the surface. So I just used a big piece of cardboard to test out the stencil, get a feel for which brush worked best. Once you're happy with everything and you like the colors, you can start prepping. Step 3 is to scrub the concrete with a spray hose or a pressure washer if it's especially dirty or old, you want to be super thorough. And you can also use concrete cleaner diluted with some water if you like. I didn't do this since our concrete was brand new, but probably wouldn't hurt in most cases. And then scrub that with a stiff bristle push broom. After that, make sure you let everything dry completely. Step 4, use a leaf blower or something similar to remove as much dirt and debris as possible, anything loose, and then you can paint your first base coat. After letting the first coat dry completely, you can paint an optional second base coat if you want and let that dry completely too. Step 5, now you're ready to start stenciling. So I used painter's tape to secure the stencil each time I put it down, which worked pretty well, and it won't pull up any of the base coat paint if you make sure to let it dry completely first. My recommendation here is to find a great audiobook or a podcast, because this is obviously the most time-consuming part. Another tip I'd give here is that these projects are much more about the whole thing rather than the small details, so don't worry if you have splotchy stencils here and there or you mess up a little. I had a ton of mishaps like that, and now that it's all done, you would never notice them. This project probably took me about 10 or 12 very long working days to complete because it was such a big space, and although I got absolutely munched by bugs during the process, it was entirely worth it. So I'd initially wanted to tile this space with cement tiles, but I quickly learned that they are wildly expensive and also really difficult to care for. We are not the kind of household that does well with surfaces that you have to seal periodically or exercise extreme caution when using. I ended up loving the way the stencil came out, so it has been amazing so far. With the help of my mom, I sewed some pretty amateur but surprisingly decent looking new cushion covers for our old ratty ones, which I'll do another DIY video about soon, and styled out the furniture with pillows and throws to match the tile pattern. We added a bunch of succulents and colorful plant pots, and the end result feels like night and day. There are still a lot of things I'm dreaming about doing in this space, like adding gas logs to the fireplace, more plants, and maybe even hanging some decorative things on the wood fence. But overall, I am so incredibly happy with how this project turned out, and I'm so glad we decided to go the stencil route and save so much money. Another thing about this porch and patio paint is that it's extremely durable and washable, which I've heard is not necessarily the case with cement tiles. After the super rainy winter that we had here in California, I was still able to spray this patio down with the hose and get it looking brand new again, which is really encouraging. When I was deciding on a color palette for this space, I was inspired by the idea of hanging with friends and sipping an Aperol Spritz on the patio. So I kind of wanted the whole space to have that same color story, a backyard designed to look like an Aperol Spritz. It feels very on brand for me, and I'm truly so happy with how it turned out. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions on this whole process and what kind of DIY home project I should tackle next. Also, if you have any tips on patio makeovers or painting concrete, be sure to drop those in the comments too. Be sure to subscribe for more DIY, design, home decor, and lifestyle videos soon, and I'll see you all in the next video.